He promised riches beyond imagination. Invest $1,000 today, and in just weeks, it could become $1,500. Guaranteed, with no risk at all. Crowds believed him, lining up with envelopes of cash, their eyes filled with hope. But behind the glitter of opportunity, the truth was far darker. Every dollar paid to the early believers came not from profits, but from the pockets of those who followed. This was not an investment. It was a pyramid, and pyramids always fall. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Financial Story so you won't miss the next shocking financial stories. At first, it looked real. Investors received returns. Steady, consistent, almost magical. They told friends, neighbors, even family, "It works." The word spread like fire. But in truth, the money wasn't growing. It was simply moving from the bottom to the top. He became a legend, hailed as a financial genius. His calm smile, expensive suit, and persuasive tone silenced doubts. But the higher the pyramid grew, the more fragile it became, built not on wealth but on faith and endless recruitment. Whispers began. Some asked, "Where does the money come from?" He dismissed doubts with charm, offering confidence instead of proof. For most, that was enough. They didn't want the truth. They wanted the dream, even if it was a trap. The dream would shatter. When new money slowed, the pyramid cracked. Investors discovered the nightmare beneath the gold. Empty promises, vanished savings, broken lives. It was not wealth. It was the cruel cycle of the next feeding the last. Before he became the face of a financial pyramid, he was just an ordinary man chasing extraordinary dreams. Born to a modest family, he grew up watching his parents struggle to pay bills, often hearing conversations about money whispered late at night. As a child, he promised himself he would never live that way. Money to him wasn't just about comfort. It was about freedom, dignity, and respect. In his early 20s, he worked tirelessly. Days as a clerk, nights studying finance books borrowed from dusty libraries. He wasn't brilliant in math or economics, but he understood something more powerful: people. He had a gift for listening, for making others feel seen, for wrapping words in warmth that bred trust. He learned quickly that in finance, trust was worth more than numbers. His first venture was small. With savings from odd jobs and loans from friends, he set up a tiny office. The room had peeling paint, a single desk, and a second-hand computer. Yet in his voice there was conviction. "I can make your money grow." At first, only neighbors invested, handing over small sums with cautious hope. When he returned them more than they gave, by secretly using new deposits from others, they smiled, thanked him, and told everyone they knew. This was how the illusion began, not with greed, but with the dream of proving himself, of being admired, of escaping the shadow of poverty. He believed he was giving people what they wanted: a chance. They didn't care how he did it, only that it worked. And when it worked, even if it was built on a fragile lie, he felt like a hero. As the years passed, success followed him like a shadow. He upgraded from a modest office to a polished downtown space, decorated with leather chairs and framed certificates. He wore better suits, drove a nicer car, and moved his family into a spacious home. But despite the luxury creeping into his life, he maintained an aura of relatability. He never spoke down to his clients. He laughed at their jokes, attended their weddings, donated to their charities. He seemed less like a banker and more like a friend watching over their futures. People admired his discipline. He still woke early, still walked to the office, still claimed he worked for the people. When clients asked how he managed to keep returns so steady, he smiled gently and said, "It's just discipline. I don't gamble. I protect your money like my own." Those words were magic. To retirees, he was a guardian. To young couples, he was a builder of dreams. To charities, he was a blessing. And he believed it too. Somewhere between the lies and the promises, he convinced himself he wasn't hurting anyone. After all, everyone was happy. The people who trusted him got what they wanted. Security. The new money flowing in kept the system alive, and he told himself, one day I'll make it real. What made him truly dangerous wasn't his cunning, it was his humanity. He wasn't a cartoon villain twirling a mustache. He was approachable, relatable, even kind. And that's why thousands trusted him. They saw themselves in him, a hard-working man who rose from nothing, who understood struggle, who offered a safe path to success. That was the trap. He wasn't just building a financial pyramid. He was building trust, brick by brick, until the foundation looked unshakable. And by the time people realized the truth, the pyramid was already towering, fed by hope and bound for collapse. The brilliance of his scheme was in its simplicity. Money flowed upward, not outward. He promised steady returns, not outrageous, but believable, 10%, 15%, sometimes 20%. Enough to feel generous, yet not so high that it seemed suspicious. The secret was that there were no profits at all. The cash that one client withdrew came directly from the deposits of new investors. It was a cycle, a machine that required constant fuel. New money to feed old promises. At first, it was easy. New clients poured in from word of mouth. A neighbor told a friend told a cousin told a coworker. Soon, strangers were knocking on his door with envelopes of cash. The office swelled with activity. His staff printed account statements showing trades and profits. He staged meetings with graphs rising smoothly, portfolios growing steadily, and reports filled with fake details. Everything looked legitimate. To silence doubts, he used charm. When someone asked where the profits came from, he spoke about strategies too complex for most to follow. Derivatives, foreign bonds, arbitrage. The words didn't matter. What mattered was the confidence in his voice. People wanted to believe, and he gave them every reason to. If anyone pressed too hard, he dismissed them politely. This opportunity isn't for everyone. And just like that, the exclusivity made his fund even more desirable. The money piled up. Small investors brought hundreds, then thousands. Wealthier ones added tens of thousands. Eventually, entire retirement accounts, life savings, and inheritances flowed into his hands. He didn't even need to advertise. Scarcity and secrecy became his greatest marketing tools. When someone said, "He turned me down, but maybe I can get you in," others felt privileged to be accepted. It was no longer just about returns. It was about belonging to an exclusive circle. But with growth came pressure. The machine had to keep running. Every withdrawal had to be matched by deposits from new recruits. If the flow slowed, the illusion cracked. He began leaning on recruiters, trusted agents who went into communities, churches, and social clubs, promising the same golden opportunity. These recruiters earned commissions, feeding their own greed, which in turn fed his. The pyramid grew taller, layer upon layer of unsuspecting believers. Soon, the scheme spread beyond neighborhoods. Professional feeder funds, smaller firms eager for profit, funneled millions into his operation. Banks extended credit, not realizing they were financing fiction. He became a man of influence, attending galas, donating to charities, shaking hands with mayors and senators. His name appeared in glossy magazines as the man who delivered security in uncertain times. Respect became his greatest shield. Regulators glanced at his numbers, but who would question a man so admired? Inside, though, the stress mounted. Every day he calculated risks, not of investments, but of exposure. A sudden surge of withdrawals could destroy everything. If too many people asked for their money back at once, the tower would collapse. He managed it carefully, encouraging clients to reinvest their profits instead of cashing out. Many agreed, happy to see their accounts grow on paper. The fewer withdrawals, the longer the game could last, but the cracks were there. Whispers from skeptical analysts who noticed that his results were too consistent. Questions from regulators who wondered why his fund never lost money, even during market crashes. He waved them away with the same calm smile, the same polished charm. Most didn't push harder. Nobody wanted to be the fool who doubted a genius, especially one who made so many people rich. In private, he told himself it wasn't fraud, not really. It's temporary, he thought. One day I'll make it real. One day I'll fix it. He believed his own lies. That was the cruelest part. He wasn't just deceiving others, he was deceiving himself. But deep down, he knew the truth. The pyramid could only stand if new people kept coming in. The moment they stopped, the structure would fall, crushing those at the bottom. And yet, he pressed on. He expanded, smiled for the cameras, shook more hands, and collected more money. The illusion was perfect, but fragile, like glass shimmering in the sun. All it would take was one crack, one shock, and everything would shatter. It began with whispers, then panic, then screams. For years, the machine had worked perfectly. Money in, money out. Illusions sustained by faith. But when the stream of new investors slowed, the gears jammed. One client wanted his savings back, then another, then hundreds. The requests piled high, and for the first time, he had no answers. The vault was empty. There were no investments, no secret strategies, only numbers on paper and the desperate hope that no one would notice. But they did. The first wave of panic came when small investors realized payments were late. Technical delays, he said, a temporary banking issue. For a few weeks, people believed him. After all, he had never failed them before. But then larger clients began to demand their withdrawals. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions, all money they had trusted him with for years. He stalled, avoided phone calls, made excuses, even lashed out at employees who dared to question him. The illusion cracked, and once it cracked, the entire pyramid began to tremble. Word spread quickly. The same communities that once praised him now turned hostile. Families that had celebrated easy profits now screamed betrayal. Churches that had funneled donations into his scheme denounced him from the pulpit. Neighbors who once smiled now spat when they saw him. Investors who had encouraged their friends to join felt the crushing guilt of leading them to ruin. The ripple of anger spread across the city like wildfire. His office, once a place of calm authority, became a fortress under siege. Crowds gathered outside, fists pounding on the glass, demanding answers. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, voices shouting accusations. Inside, the walls seemed to close in. Employees wept at their desks. Some had known the truth, others claimed ignorance, but all were complicit now. The building, once filled with the hum of printers and the murmur of reassurances, was drowned in chaos. The hardest part was the faces. Retirees who had handed over their pensions, now left with nothing. Mothers who had saved for their children's education, now watching dreams evaporate. Men who had mortgaged their homes to invest in the future, now facing foreclosure. Their tears and rage carved scars deeper than any financial loss. They had not just lost money, they had lost trust, hope, even dignity. The law caught up quickly. Regulators, once blind, now swooped in with fury. Investigations uncovered the truth. There were no trades, no profits, only billions shuffled like shells in a cruel game. The numbers were staggering. Lifetime savings from tens of thousands of people, gone. The press labeled it the financial crime of the century. His name, once whispered with admiration, now dripped with venom. When he was finally confronted, there was no fight left in him. His shoulders slumped, his face pale, his voice cracked. It was all a lie, he admitted. For years, he had believed he could outrun the truth. Now, cornered, he surrendered. Police escorted him through a gauntlet of cameras and jeering crowds. His hands, once shaking those of politicians and businessmen, were bound in steel cuffs. The collapse was total. The pyramid did not just fall, it crushed everyone beneath it. Charities closed, universities cut programs, families fell into bankruptcy. Some victims could not bear the shame or despair and took their own lives. The damage spread far beyond money. It tore through communities, left scars in generations, and became a symbol of how blind faith and unchecked greed can destroy lives. In court, the victims spoke. One by one, they told their stories. Savings gone, futures stolen, trust shattered. Some shouted, some wept, some simply stared at him with hollow eyes. He listened, expression flat, a faint tremor in his hands the only sign of his humanity. The judge called him a predator, a man who fed on hope. The sentence was brutal. Decades in prison, long enough to ensure he would die behind bars. For him, the empire was over. No more offices, no more investors, no more illusions. Only a cell, cold and quiet, where the weight of his choices echoed in the silence. He had built a pyramid of lies that touched thousands of lives, and when it crumbled, it buried him beneath the rubble. But for the victims, the story never ended. Some rebuilt, scarred but wiser. Others never recovered, forever haunted by the day they handed over their trust to a man who saw them as fuel for his machine. Their anger and grief became the true legacy of his empire, a warning written not in books, but in broken lives. The city moved on, the markets recovered, new schemes rose and fell, but the memory of his pyramid lingered. It stood as a monument to the danger of blind faith, the seduction of easy wealth, and the inevitable collapse of every lie, no matter how grand. His name became shorthand for betrayal, his story told as a cautionary tale in classrooms and boardrooms alike. And in the quiet of his cell, he knew it. He had not just stolen money, he had stolen futures, stolen trust, stolen dreams. The empire of lies was gone, but the pain it left would last forever. The story of the pyramid is more than a tale of greed. It is a mirror, reflecting the vulnerabilities within us all. Why did so many people fall for it? Not because they were foolish, but because they were human. They longed for security in uncertain times, for hope in a world that often feels stacked against them. And when someone came along offering easy answers, steady returns, no risk, a shortcut to prosperity, they listened. They believed. They wanted it to be true. That is the first lesson. If a promise sounds too good to be true, it almost always is. No investment can guarantee high returns without risk. Markets rise and fall, fortunes shift, economies bend under the weight of uncertainty. To believe in perfection is to ignore reality. The pyramid thrived not because it was clever, but because it told people what they desperately wanted to hear. The second lesson lies in trust. Trust is the currency of finance, more valuable than dollars or gold. Once broken, it leaves scars that last for generations. The victims of the pyramid did not just lose money. They lost faith in people, in institutions, sometimes even in themselves. They asked, "How could I have been so blind?" But the truth is, trust is not blindness, it is risk. And when placed in the wrong hands, it becomes a weapon. The third lesson is vigilance. Fraud does not always wear the mask of greed. Sometimes it looks like generosity, like kindness, like the neighbor who listens or the advisor who reassures. The man at the top of the pyramid did not seem like a villain. He seemed ordinary, relatable, even humble. That is what made him so dangerous. Evil does not always arrive shouting. Often it whispers, smiling with open hands. For society, the lesson is clear. Oversight must be strong, transparency must be demanded, and skepticism must never die. Regulators failed to see the warning signs, communities ignored the red flags, and individuals silenced their doubts. If even one of those barriers had held, the collapse might have been avoided. Instead, silence and complacency became accomplices. But perhaps the greatest lesson is this. True wealth is not measured in shortcuts, but in patience and discipline. The lure of quick riches blinds us to the steady, quiet path of real growth. Investments diversified, savings protected, risks acknowledged. It is not glamorous, it is not exciting, but it is honest. And honesty, in the end, is the only foundation strong enough to hold. For the victims, the scars remain. Some rebuilt their lives, learning to question, to doubt, to demand proof before trust. Others never recovered, living with the bitterness of betrayal. Their stories should not be forgotten. They are the price paid for a lesson the world cannot afford to ignore. And for us, the story endures as a warning. Whenever someone promises certainty in a world of chaos, whenever someone offers riches without risk, whenever someone says, "Trust me," without evidence, remember the pyramid. Remember the faces of those who lost everything. Remember that every dream too perfect hides a shadow. Thank you for watching. If you found this story eye-opening, please like, share, and subscribe to Financial Stories so you won't miss the next shocking chapter in the world of money, fraud, and history. The man who built the pyramid thought he could escape truth. For a time, he seemed invincible, admired, unstoppable. But lies, no matter how carefully stacked, cannot stand forever. Eventually, gravity wins. The pyramid always falls. And when it does, only one question remains. Will we have learned enough to never climb it again?